We definitely have a lot of things to talk about this week, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with kind of a big one here. So our prefetch warm-up topic is going to be the GDC roadmap talk. So this happened basically first thing Monday morning at the beginning of the week, and it was insane. There was a massive line to get into this talk here, and I was with Jason Wyman, and we were quite far back in the line. And, as we get up, we see that they ended up getting a quite small room this year. So there were actually probably a couple hundred people still outside in line who didn't actually make it in. So it was just pretty amazing to see, how many people were eager and ready to see this Unity roadmap talk. But a little bit unfortunate that all those people couldn't make it into the talk. I think they had to get a smaller room this year. Just because they wanted to do, 2 days of, having a bunch of talks and everything. So it just kind of made more sense to get the size room that they did. But so I was standing in the back, basically just doing some kind of live tweeting off my phone, just kind of typing on my phone through the whole thing. So you can check out this thread here if you want, where I just kind of talked about everything that popped up. But they did actually post the talk to YouTube afterwards, so you can just kind of, watch that, and you don't have to read through kind of my live off the cuff reactions from it. But the roadmap talk I thought was really good. We can get into kind of some of the specific things here, just some of the main points that they hit on. There were a bunch of things kind of, on all different disciplines of game development in that talk. So we're not going to get too deep into everything, but I do just want to call out a couple ones that, I found interesting, and also ones that are kind of relevant to our particular show here. So one thing that I found interesting, this is kind of one of the earlier points that they brought up, is they said that 90% of all Steam releases in 2023 used a scriptable render pipeline. So that was either a URP project, an HDRP project, or a custom render pipeline project. And so that means only 10% of the Steam releases in 2023 were using the built-in render pipeline. So if I remember correctly, I think they said at GDC last year it was around 50% is what the previous year's numbers were. So it really is interesting to see this kind of massive adoption for the universal render pipeline, scriptable render pipelines, everything like that. Were you guys kind of surprised when you heard that at all?
Actually, yeah, I would have expected less. So 90%, I was pretty surprised. It's good news, though.
I'd say,
yeah.
Yeah, good that they're kind of, finally making that kind of, I know it's been kind of a long transition where, they're kind of moving towards this whole unified render pipelines and everything. So, yeah. So then after that, they did talk about, some of the graphics stuff and cool, features that they had going on. And there actually were a couple talks on some of the graphics things that I wasn't able to make it into, unfortunately, but hopefully those should all be posted to YouTube very soon, because there definitely are a lot of, cool graphics things in there. So next up, they talked a little bit about some of the Unity Muse things. Unity Muse is kind of their name for the whole AI initiative, where there's a bunch of AI related things. So they did mention that, and we got Grand Theft Auto going outside apparently.
By the way, if you also pulled up the video at the same time, you explain. Maybe there's some pictures.
Yeah, that probably is a good idea here. So we can go to share this tab, and then I guess we're kind of talking about.
I asks, there are announcements that are different from Unite in this roadmap.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll just go ahead and mute this and have this kind of playing in the background here so these are kind of some of the, again, graphics things, and then where is all the AI stuff? I don't know. I'll just let this roll while I kind of talk about some things. So so they talked about some of the new Unity Muse things. So that some things that they have coming up are Unity Muse behavior trees. So I guess an ability to create behavior trees through Unity Muse. I don't think they really gave a whole lot of information about what this exactly is going to look like and some of the benefits that you get from it, but they did kind of mention that that is something that was coming. Do you guys have any kind of knowledge about some of the things that they've kind of publicly stated about the behavior trees for Unity Muse?
Actually, not. No, I think this is one of the few times that they've mentioned it, if not the first time.
Yeah, I think you're right. So yeah, it was that thing, and then they also did say that they're going to have some basic animations available through Unity Muse. So if you just need like a simple idle animation or a walking animation, or maybe some dancing thing, like it seems like just kind of like basic things, not like getting super complex with the animations, that you can kind of maybe just like type into the Muse thing and it will generate that animation for you. So again, it seems like something that would be really good for prototyping, and you have some just good solid animations in there. Another interesting one was sound effects. So there's going to be like an audio version of Unity Muse, where again, if you just need some simple explosion sound effects, or some like walking on leaves or something like that, like you can just kind of type that in, get some basic sound effects. And so yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see the quality of what these sound effects are like if it's something that is mostly just kind of appropriate for prototyping, or if you actually are making like a polished project, is it going to be up to the standards of something like that? So I definitely think those are cool things. And then the last kind of big AI related thing is they said that they want to give it a tighter integration into the Unity editor. One of the kind of benefits that you get from that is a whole, like Unity Muse now kind of has that whole context of your full project, so that, when you ask it any questions, then it kind of like already knows what you have done, what you're trying to do, and can give you contextual responses based off of all that information. Again, what the context of your project is and the things that you're typing in, asking for it. So, again, this would be something that we'll have to test out in an actual project to see how well that context works, and if it does give you more of a benefit than just typing into like a chat GPT or something that doesn't have that full context of your project. So yeah, I think it's a quite interesting thing that they're trying to do. Danny, did you have any kind of thoughts on any of the Unity Muse things coming out, or is it just like, yeah, we'll see how this all kind of plays out?
I mean, I'm definitely excited for the fact that like having some clearly like training an LLM on like Unity specific things must be able to get something better than just plain old any chat GPT or the others. I'm interested to see where it actually leads.
Yeah.
But it seems they're going in a good direction right now. So
yeah, I sure hope so. Philip, how about yourself? Did you have any thoughts on any of the AI things that they brought up?
Yeah, I actually don't know any more about this than you do, probably. Still interested to see like how usable in practice it is, what's the quality.
Right.
It'd be fun to see what kind of results we get out of that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, actually, this is an interesting question here. Will Muse support customized animations after it generates prototypes as animations? So I'm assuming that would be like, if Unity Muse generates an animation for you, can you go in and edit it? I would certainly hope that that's the case. I don't think they didn't really give any specifics about, how these things look like in production, what is the actual output that you get. Or if it is just kind of, like a black box and it's something that you can't change. I don't think that will be the case. But yeah, I think you would be probably able to edit it. But yeah, Danny, do you have something on that?
I mean, I would probably assume, because in this case, I actually have no clue. I've not seen anything internally, so I'm as much as you guys. I would assume that it just produces, like an asset importer, when you get in an FBX model, it just produces a model. In the same way, I would assume that Muse is just producing an actual animation clip, and if it is just producing an animation clip, you can just like change it, just like you can any other animation clip. So I think it's very likely, but obviously this is me saying that and not Unity saying that. That's
right. Yeah, just kind of speculation on your behalf. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, yeah, the next thing that we can talk a little bit about is some of the multiplayer things that they mentioned. This is something they had spoken about at I believe at the Unite event, where they're announcing that they have kind of the multiplayer center. I think we actually do have a timestamp on this video here for some the multiplayer stuff. Yeah, end-to-end multiplayer. So yeah, the idea with this whole multiplayer center is it's kind of like an interface that you can use where you can select things basically about your game. You can say, you know, my game, you know, is this, it kind of needs this and this. And this is actually, you know, perfect timing. We have a little view of the multiplayer center here. So you just kind of, yeah, say some things about your game, some things that you need. And then it basically can just kind of like install all the required packages. Like it gives you like recommendations on the things that you will need. And then it just gives you like an easy interface to install all the packages like right away, just right through that editor. So definitely think that that's super cool, especially because, you know, right now they have, you know, the netcode for entities as well as netcode for game objects. And they did say that in the future, they do want to kind of like unify those netcode solutions. But right now we kind of have, you know, multiple things. And they also do have, you know, Unity cloud services that you kind of need to set some things up with. And so if you just do like kind of, you know, all that stuff right through the multiplayer center, then you can just kind of set that all up within one interface. So that definitely is a very handy thing there. Philip, I know you've kind of done some stuff with the Mega City Metro sample that I think we'll talk a little bit more in depth about later, but what do you kind of think about this whole multiplayer center?
Well, there's so many things you have to know to get a multiplayer project running with like matchmaking and all that. So I feel like it's definitely gonna help a lot of people get started on this and like find their footing on what they need and like what would be best for their project, because it's hard to know like everything you have to know for these projects.
Right. Yeah. There's so many different options, and they were even, you know, talking about some things in this talk here about, you know, matchmaking and lobby and relay, and if you need Vivox and any type of server hosting, you know, it can certainly be overwhelming if you're, you know, just trying to make, you know, some fun multiplayer game. Danny, do you have any thoughts on any of the multiplayer center stuff?
No, I just think it's great to see, especially because like Unity has so many different packages. It's very nice. You could make pretty much everything, but it also means that it can sometimes be hard to figure out what you need when. So having some place to actually see what you need when and like basically use it almost like an information center is really, really good. Like it's very much about unification in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Lovely.
And then actually there was one more multiplayer thing that I wanted to just briefly bring up here, which is this distributed authority. So it's kind of like a new networking model that they are going to be releasing at some point. And so rather than it being, you know, like a fully client authoritative or fully server authoritative networking model, my understanding of this is a distributed authority where you can kind of distribute this simulation across a number of clients. So this kind of lends to building larger scale multiplayer titles with lower costs and latency. So this is kind of, you know, an interesting, it seems like kind of almost maybe some type of, you know, hybrid between a fully server authoritative versus a, you know, client authoritative one. So yeah, it is interesting. They're kind of like experimenting with any of these new networking models. Philip, do you have any more kind of context about what this distributed authority networking model is?
No, actually, it's the first time I hear about it. So no, I don't
kept
know
it top
anything about
secret.
it.
Yeah.
It looks interesting though.
Yeah, absolutely. And Danny, I would assume same for you.
Yeah, no idea.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think sounds interesting enough, something to, you know, keep your eye on. And again, it could be, you know, another one of those things that maybe the multiplayer center at some point will kind of give you some recommendations about, you know, hey, maybe your game is kind of a good candidate for using that distributed authority model. So then, yeah, moving beyond some of the multiplayer stuff, one fantastic thing that I'm super excited for is build profiles. Ever since they kind of put the axe on the build configuration assets, which were something that you had to do like kind of back in the day for DOTS and ECS projects, or you had to like create like an asset with this build configuration and kind of define some of the things related to the build, like what platforms that it was going to be on, and you could add in your scenes in there and everything. And they were extremely handy to use, especially for if you're making like a multiplayer title where you're maybe deploying your game to multiple platforms. You wanted to have like client versions and server versions of your game. It's super easy to just store all these configurations in a build configuration asset. And then that way, when you want to build the project, you just, clicked on the asset and hit build. So build profiles, this seems like it's going to be the, replacement for that type of thing, where again, we can store a bunch of custom build profiles, all the settings related to that in, a thing in the editor where you can just select, I want to run this build or this build. And that way, all that stuff is saved, so you don't have to continually be configuring it, and then maybe you miss a step, or you don't have to create your own, custom build pipeline or anything like that. So I think this is such a fantastic addition. I'm glad that they, finally have a good replacement for the build configuration assets. Philip, I see you nodding your head a lot, very much. It seems like you're probably excited for this one as well. And actually, here we have it on screen right here. But what do you have to say on that?
Yeah, I'm so happy these are coming back, because when the previous build profiles were removed, I think it was kind of a big loss, because it's something that I ended up having to re-implement myself in all kinds of projects because it's so important. But really happy to see they're coming back. Yeah,
absolutely. Danny, I would assume the same for you.
Oh yeah, no, especially like DOTS, you had to use them for so long. Like
right.
The only way you could get subscenes working for like initially was you had to have a build configuration set up that did all the things. So now seeing it integrated to everything, so everyone gets the
exactly. Everyone gets the benefits of this. Yeah,
and it's a really nice workflow as well. So
it just looks like there's a little window here, and again, you kind of have the build platforms that you're building to. And then you have all your different build profiles. So you can see kind of in this one, you have, a MetaQuest, you have a Android demos 1, 2, and 3, you have a Windows build. Again, you can just keep all these different build profiles, have them saved out, and run them as you need to. And then also this, new platform browser allows all the platforms Unity supports to find out more about how to onboard new platforms. Interesting. So I guess that would be just kind of a deployment thing for, getting a little bit more information about deploying to certain platforms. So good stuff. Another good thing that they brought up, it seems to be kind of like a core feature of what they're going to be trying to do going forward, is giving better support for web platforms. Basically, they want to make it so, any project that you create in Unity, you can deploy to any platform that supports the web, whether that be like a mobile, XR platform, of course, desktop through the web, tablets, anything like that. One of these kind of core things that they're really focusing on is web GPU. And actually, good timing, we have this stuff right here. So my understanding of web GPU is, it kind of uses your web browser to talk a lot more directly with the GPU that you have on your system. And then so that way you can, run crazy things like compute shaders, and, doing things that you couldn't do in previous versions of, building to web platforms. So that's definitely a big thing. And also, instant games is something that they do want to support, is, the ability for, I guess through Facebook, there's a way you can, just click a button if you're like in Facebook, and it will just kind of load the game on your device immediately. I'm starting to see more and more platforms do this. Like I think Discord is actually having some type of like game thing. I was talking to somebody yesterday who went to like a talk at the Discord booth where they were saying that they have this new Discord SDK where you can like deploy a game to Discord and be able to kind of like play simple little games through there. And even actually I saw through YouTube, they had their own kind of like instant game type thing recently. Like I was just on YouTube and it just popped up in the middle of the feed on my desktop, and I could like play these like random, basically Flash games right through there. So it's kind of interesting that these like smaller games are kind of like seeming to like make a resurgence in some type of way now that these like platforms are finding ways to easily support these and deploy them onto devices through these like instant game stuff. So it seems to be interesting that they're really focusing on the web as an important platform. So Danny, did you have any kind of thoughts on any of this interesting web stuff here?
I mean, it just reminds me a lot of the like old Facebook days. Like the only reason that I had Facebook when I was younger was to go on and play some Facebook games that I could also play with my friends.
Nice.
Like it was the next level up from a Flash game. It was the Facebook games.
Those elite Facebook games.
Yeah.
And Philip, any other thoughts on any web things?
I actually don't remember, like, did the old Unity web player ever get a replacement? Like, now if you want to build to web, what are your options?
Believe just WebGL, right?
Right, yeah. Well, I feel like that was always a nice thing to have, so I think having web GPU support would be pretty cool.
Yeah, certainly. So it'll be cool to see, what people do with that. And then, so moving on, I know they also did talk about some XR improvements. So, VR, AR, MR, all the Rs. Just want to have better support for on-device testing. One interesting thing that they called out that I think is just, kind of a really cool thing is being able to, specifically for the Apple Vision Pro, to develop games for Apple Vision Pro while wearing an Apple Vision Pro. So you can be, have the headset on, you have your, massive screen where you have your editor going, and you can basically be developing a Vision Pro app just like that using your desktop mirroring thing there. And when you want to deploy, it basically just, sends that build to your headset, and you can, look over and then have your little Vision Pro experience just kind of pop right up there. And you don't have to worry about, taking the headset on and off and everything. And especially if you, have it plugged into a power source, you can just, constantly just have power to it, and you don't need to worry about anything like that. They're doing a lot of cool XR things. I know, one important thing to them is these, social VR experiences where you can, bring multiple people into a VR environment and kind of all hang out together and everything. Which is definitely something that I see a lot of VR companies wanting to do more of. And so one thing that they actually announced that they're doing is they're now going to have a VR multiplayer template, because this actually was something that was a little bit of a pain point, where if you wanted to make a like a netcode for game objects game with the XR interaction toolkit, there was a lot of just kind of like weird things that you had to do to set things up to make sure all the input was tracked correctly. And so now that they have like a template project where if you want to make a game like this, you can just kind of load up that template and build right off of it. I don't know if Philip, do you do a lot of or any XR stuff by chance, or is it mostly all just kind of like dots and ECS stuff, or do you get a chance to play around with any fun XR stuff?
Not much XR on my part, unfortunately. Barely any.
Yeah. How about you, Danny?
It's been a while. Like during my studies, that was like a constant thing we would study. VR development and VR projects. How do you make VR work well if you have a 10 by 10 meter space? People are very afraid to walk around, not being able to look out.
Right.
How do you make that
right.
Stuff like that. But no, I haven't done it for a while, and I've seen people in the office play around with how do you merge that nicely with dots and stuff. So.
Exactly, yeah. And that is actually one of the things that they announced in the, they did a talk on Apple Vision Pro, and they did announce that ECS is getting, or Polyspatial is going to support ECS soon. So I don't think it's fully supported or if it's limited support or just not supported at all. But that is something that I guess people had been kind of asking for, and that is something that is supported now. And yeah, I just wanted to showcase this here because this is kind of, you developing with the screen mirroring in the Apple Vision Pro, and then, creating a thing and just having this little volume in here, and you can just test it right there. So I think that's so cool. That's living in the future, in my opinion. All right. So moving on. Now we get into the exciting stuff, the fun things that you all came here for, which is the some of the dots things, the high performance improvements and everything like that. So the real big announcement here is Laurent, who is the kind of project manager for dots. And so yeah, he just kind of started his portion here talking a little bit about how dots in ECS enables you to build more ambitious games, just doing a quick kind of overview about what dots exactly is. And let me just go ahead and kind of skip ahead to this part here. So one thing that they did just want to call out is they said that we are committed to the dots ecosystem. So they just kind of called out a couple things in the ECS 1.1 and 1.2, which are available in pre-release versions right now. Hopefully we'll get a fully released version of that soon. And then we do actually have our first kind of official mention of ECS 1.3. Of course, most people can count 1, 2, 3, so we would kind of assume that 1.3 would be coming at some point. But they do kind of announce here that physics scalability improvements and more quality fixes with dozens targeted and netcode for entities. So that seems interesting, that there's a lot of kind of performance and scalability improvements around netcode for entities stuff. So yeah, very cool there. I assume you guys probably can't talk about too much about some of the things coming up as far as this goes, but
I don't know what I can or can't say, but it's cool stuff. That's all I'll say.
Yes. Yeah. And then, so yeah, one thing that they did say here is that I guess they did a survey, and they said 25% of productions could use some type of ECS solution to improve performance in their game, but that 100% of studios could use more performance out of the box. And so that kind of leads into really the kind of like big announcement as far as ECS type stuff is concerned, is that we're bringing game objects and bringing game objects and entities closer together to make ECS. Let's see, do they actually say it on this slide, or is it the next one here?
Next one.
Yeah.
There you go.
So the convergence of game objects and entities. So this right here is basically they are saying that at some point, if we kind of look in the lower left corner of the screen here, this does say beyond Unity 6, so probably won't be expecting this to happen anytime soon, but that all game objects are now going to have an entity representation on the back end. So basically, if you're building a regular game objects project, by default, whether you know it or not, or whether you need it or not, every game object is going to have an entity's representation on the background. The advantage of that is you could be building your regular game objects project as is, and then basically, if there's one particular point in your application where you could kind of use some high performance processing of an ECS like system, you can just kind of build that system out and kind of go a level deeper and be able to interface more directly with those entities to kind of process all those things. So yeah, it really seems interesting that they're kind of really kind of doubling down on bringing this performance to everybody. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a little introduction into it here. Obviously, we didn't have a whole lot of information about things going on right now, but Danny, is this, are you familiar with this?
I am. It's been, something I've been on for a while. This is good. This is really cool that we are finally saying it to people. Obviously, I can't say much, but I think the pictures, if you look at them, describe a lot of what we want to get to. And yeah, obviously I also cannot say anything about release.
Right. Do you have
and it
any?
also says that it's beyond Unity 6. So yeah, it's already known that it's not going to be Unity 6.
Yeah. So could you, I know you can't talk a lot about, anything unannounced, but can you just kind of talk maybe a little bit about some of the benefits that people could expect to see from something like this? Again, without getting into too deep into specifics, but just kind of, talking generally at a high level, like, why this is a good thing for people.
There are plenty of reasons why this is nice. Like, actually, later on in the stream, I'll be showing a lot of managed and entities interrupt, and there's like all the like cases of like how do you get one from the other and vice versa, how do you communicate, and this simplifies a lot of that process. Obviously, just I can't say what it actually means, but looking at the slides, and we do have some very confident prototypes of this working. So, yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're hoping it's sooner rather than later, but this time I'm actually happy that they're not saying, "Oh, it's gonna be 6 months." Because if anyone has watched Unity.'s 2019 presentation, that was the classic, like, "Oh, it's gonna be 6 months away," and it never was. So, actually saying that we don't know is a good thing.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And Philip, how about yourself? What are your kind of high-level thoughts about the kind of unification of game objects and entities finally?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to make anything hybrid much easier to deal with. Because I don't know what you guys think, but in my opinion, one of the toughest things of working with .ECS is when you have to deal with hybrid stuff. And this kind of thing, these features, it's going to help a lot to make that process much simpler.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I'm very much looking forward to that because, I understand why the kind of hybrid workflow exists because, entities are all kind of based around this, super efficient, unmanaged memory and everything like that. But, in games, we like to do crazy, fun, interesting effects and everything like that. And, all that stuff, currently does live in more managed memory. So, we kind of have to, there is going to be kind of have to be some bridge at some point. So, as long as we can kind of, bring those things a lot closer together, I think it's going to be a lot, easier for development and everything. But it is cool stuff. We can kind of, just take a quick look at, looks like this is kind of some like mock-ups of a hierarchy of what they have here. So, it looks like we kind of have like the world, and this would be kind of like the default ECS world. I guess this kitchen set, this, judging by this little icon, this would probably be like the scene here. And then we have these kind of typical cubes, which are like typically represent like game objects. And then, what we've kind of already seen already is like these more hexagon shaped things are like entities. So it's kind of interesting how they're showing these, entities inside the hierarchy this way, where they're kind of like almost nested under these game objects. So again, it will be interesting to see how this all, comes about, this kind of tighter integration. And then also kind of like looking at this inspector, again, we have a little mock-up here, showing kind of some of the built-in components versus behavior components and some iComponent data. So it looks like maybe this is kind of more of a direct, having an iComponent data right available in the editor as far as instead of doing kind of like an authoring approach, which we actually are going to be talking about authoring in just a minute here. But I won't have you guys put you guys in a corner and comment too much about what things that we're seeing on the screen right here, but yeah, definitely interesting to look into these slides a little bit.
Yeah, we obviously can say yes or no if anything you just said was correct.
Yeah, and again, this is all kind of mock-ups, and I think they wanted to not show an actual editor screenshot to say this is what it's going to look like, and this is going to be the exact thing. But again, these are things that they're kind of mocking up, and this could be a direction that I guess we could see for this this particular feature here. So, moving along, actually, were there any other? Oh, yeah. So actually, this is a couple ECS related things here. Again, this is kind of in sort of the beyond Unity 6 portion of this talk here. So they have this ECS scalability used in editor workflows. So they did mention that they are basically going to be having the some animation as well as world building solutions based off of ECS. Again, this kind of comes back to that whole notion of only some certain percentage of people have kind of a big need for ECS. However, everybody has needs for performance. So what they're kind of saying here is that they're working on some tooling based off of ECS to improve animation for ECS as well as game object-based projects. So I know this is something that has kind of been in the works for a long time. This isn't like an official announcement of anything, unfortunately, but it is just kind of more confirmation that this is still something in the works, that they are going to be basically kind of improving this whole animation setup. One thing that Laurent did mention in this portion of the video is that, of course, it being ECS based, is we're going to be able to have large numbers of dynamic entities, all playing animations. And again, because it is all built off of ECS, even if you're using game objects, you still get a lot of those performance benefits that you would get. So I know this is something that people have been asking for a very, very long time. It's kind of been, one of the, probably the number one, ECS feature that people have been asking for. So yeah, exciting to see that we kind of have like again, not really an announcement, and this is something that we have kind of known a little bit, but just a little bit more concrete details. It feels like starting to become a little bit more real now that they're finally talking about it. So yeah, it's exciting. Danny, do you have any other thoughts on animation stuff?
No. I'm just very excited about stuff like this because we are finally at a point where we can sort of see where things are going, and I'm very excited about the prospects that I've seen internally.
Yes, yeah, that's cool. And then Philip, yeah, how about yourself? I know it's
yeah,
I'm sure you're very excited as well.
Yeah, I agree with Danny. It looks very exciting, but I don't think I can say anything about either of these things.
Yeah. And then
it's so fun when it's a publicly traded company.
Yeah. And then the other thing that they mention is world building. So this is kind of like, again, using ECS based tools to give you some things that can basically help you create bigger open worlds with better performance. So again, they didn't really give a whole lot of details on the particularly world building aspect. Laurent did mention a few things on animation in the video, but as far as world building, not a whole lot said on this, but it just seems like, again, being able to use ECS to build bigger worlds. And again, that is kind of one of the cool things about ECS, or one of their core kind of things about ECS, is that they want to make empower creators to make more ambitious games. And so I think some of these world building tools are really going to help out with that. So yeah, again, you guys probably don't have much more to say on that, but so we can go ahead and move on. So, and then actually, I think pretty much the last thing that they mentioned in this, which is right here, is that this is something that they've have kind of been talking about for a little while, about modernizing Unity Engine's foundation for all projects with the core CLR. So basically, this is going to lead to faster runtime, better performance, and future-proof, so that essentially, my understanding of it is that as soon as a new version of .NET and C# or whatever are released, then we can basically start using that version like almost immediately in Unity. That is actually one of the kind of pain points in Unity right now, is that it still is using like older versions of .NET and C#, so you can't like really get, there's a lot of new API changes and, kind of more efficient ways to do things that are only compatible with the newer versions of C#. So we don't have that at all right now. So this kind of migration to the core CLR modernization, I think is just a good thing overall. Again, no timeline on anything like this, but this does seem to be something, as it says down at the bottom here, looking beyond Unity 6. So, again, don't expect this, unfortunately, anytime soon. But yeah, again, they're just that's something that they're kind of moving towards. So Danny, again, I know you probably can't say a whole lot if you know much on this, but do you have any kind of comments on how people could kind of benefit from this type of thing?
Well, obviously, it's just going to make as it says, it's better runtime performance by default. So it doesn't specifically have anything to do necessarily with dots. Like, obviously, it's also going to help with dots, potentially, but this makes everyone happy in a way. I obviously can't say much, but there is a question now I will go into in a bit. Someone asked about the language.
I was actually just going to ask that. Well, we can just go ahead and take it right now, actually. So,
actually, I'll take this one first.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, because this one is asking about a specific thing about dots and a specific language feature, and something to keep in mind with dots and the whole unsafe part of it is that unsafe works. It works really well, and it's fucking amazing because with one of the main problems with unsafe is often you want something like a pointer, and a pointer to a managed memory is a problem because you can't just have a number indicate somewhere in managed memory because the whole thing about managed memory is it moves around. So if you have a pointer to that, that's a problem. And often when it comes to entities code, it's all unmanaged memory, and so a pointer is technique for a lot of things is fine. Native arrays make that a lot easier as well, so it's also unsafe code. And it also kind of deals with the next part, which is someone asked about, how will new coming features of C# work with dots? And it's honestly the same. Whenever there's a new C# feature that works for managed only code that is entirely managed based, then it might be a problem with dots when you're trying to burst it. But as far as Spain is interesting because Spain specifically, which isn't that new anymore, I feel like, but Spain is literally just something that says, hey, here's a pointer, and this is how long that pointer is, and it can also point to managed memory. There is one problem that it can cause with pointing to native memory, but I won't go into that this time. But there is, for instance, recently I added the ability to create entity and pass in a span instead, which means you can use stack alloc. So you can say stack alloc component type A, component type B, and call that and wrap that in your create entity call. And that means that you just passed in 2 components for your entity to be created through the stack. And so it's very efficient to create an entity with the correct archetype up front. And It's very easy to do, and it just uses the new stack alloc and spans.
Yeah, I think you had showed me that on a previous episode of the show where I was doing some things a little bit inefficiently, and you showed me how to do that. So, yeah.
Yes. So obviously we're constantly looking at the new features, but you have to look at every feature individually, whether it's a good fit for most dots cases or not.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, those were kind of some of the main announcements from this whole show. And actually, Philip, did you have anything to say on any of the core CLR migration?
Not much aside from also let's not forget the faster iteration time, which I think in recent years the time it takes to reload things in the editor has kind of degraded a bit. So I feel like that's going to be a very nice thing that this will bring.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Because I mean, every little hiccup, it can slow your progress down, and so just improving iteration time across the board is really going to benefit a lot of different reasons.
Yeah,
okay, so Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was pretty much the Unity roadmap talk. Again, overall, I thought it was a pretty good presentation, very much games focused. Didn't stray off into any other, different types of, different industries or anything too much. But yeah, again, very games focused. They're talking about, improvements that are in the editor right now, as well as, kind of giving us a little bit of a glimpse about things to come. So yeah, I think overall, pretty good presentation. Did you guys have any thoughts overall on how the presentation went from your guys' perspective?
Nope.
I actually haven't seen the presentation. I just went through the slides really quickly.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
But from what I've seen, I think they focused on the right things that people want to hear about. I think it looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, absolutely.